I never thought my life would shrink down to a single creaky bed, a cracked window, and the smell of old disinfectant. But that's exactly where my kids left me. A cheap retirement home, the kind you only choose when you're trying to get rid of someone without saying it out loud. Funny how fast a family can forget the hands that raised them. If you've ever felt written off by the people who should have stood by you, stay close. I've got a story for you, one that proves quiet men can still shake the earth. I remember the day they brought me here. My son didn't even look up from his phone, just clicked his tongue and said, "Dad, this place is fine. You'll be comfortable." Comfortable. The word stung worse than the cold breeze coming through that busted window. My daughter didn't say much either. She just kept repeating that my house was too big for me now, and that they'd handle everything. I should have known then that handle everything meant emptying out my home, dividing my belongings before I was even gone, and stuffing me into this place where hope came to die. I spent the first nights listening to the radiator clank like it was begging for mercy. The walls were paper thin, thin enough to hear the old man in the room next to mine cough all night, thin enough to hear the nurses whisper about which families never visited. My name was on that list within a week, and you don't know loneliness until you're surrounded by people and still completely invisible. I tried calling my kids in the first month. They sent me to voicemail every time. When my birthday came, the staff brought me a cupcake with a candle they had to relight twice. But my kids? Not a call, not a text, nothing. Funny thing is, I didn't get angry. Not yet. I just sat with it. Let the truth settle like dust on my hands. Because deep down, I knew something they didn't. Something they'd forgotten while they rushed through their shiny little lives. I wasn't empty, and I wasn't done. One quiet Thursday morning, when the sun was struggling through the cloudy sky, a nurse knocked on my door. "Mr. Harry, there's someone here to see you." Her voice had this surprise in it, the kind you hear when something rare happens, like a visitor for a forgotten man. I shuffled to the common room, and there he was, my lawyer, tall, neat suit, silver-rimmed glasses, still sharp as ever. He stood up when he saw me, shook my hand like I was the most important man alive. "Harry," he whispered, "we need to talk. It's time." Time for what? That question sat heavy on my tongue. But the way he looked at me, I knew. I knew the world as my kids understood it was about to split clean in half. He led me outside to a little bench near the wilted rose bushes. The retirement home kept them for decoration, but no one really cared for them. Dead blooms, snapped stems, dry soil. Fitting place for the conversation we were about to have. My lawyer sat down first, smoothing out his coat like he always did when things were serious. "Harry," he said quietly, "your kids have been calling the office. A lot." I raised an eyebrow. "Funny. They never called me." "They want updates on your finances," he continued, making air quotes that told me everything I needed to know. I took a slow breath. "And what did you tell them?" "The truth," he said. "That they're not authorized for anything. That the trust you established is still under your full control. And that nothing moves without your signature." For a moment, all I heard was the distant sound of a leaf blower across the street. My kids didn't visit me, didn't check on me, didn't even send a birthday message, but they had enough breath left to chase my money. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. My lawyer reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. "This," he said, tapping it with 2 fingers, "is the full portfolio. Current valuation, liquidation options, beneficiary structures, updates to the real estate holdings, and the new income projections." "What's the number now?" I asked, even though I already had a sense. He smiled, not a happy smile, but a knowing one. 87.4 million. I leaned back against the bench. You'd think hearing a number like that would make your heart race, but mine just settled, like it finally remembered its own strength. He handed me the documents. "Your children don't know, and frankly, Harry, I don't think they deserve to." I stared at that envelope, the weight of it, the life inside it, the decades of quiet investing, the land deal I made back when everyone thought I was foolish, the company stakes I bought with the little money I had, all of it sitting right there while my kids parked me in a place where the ceiling leaked when it rained. "They think I'm broke," I said softly. They think you're alone, he corrected. But you're not. And you're not helpless. You get to decide how this story ends. A gust of wind rolled a few dead rose petals across my shoes. I watched them tumble, fragile and weightless, just like the version of me my kids believed in. Weak, finished, disposable. But they forgot something important. I built everything I ever owned from nothing. They never bothered to learn how. My lawyer cleared his throat. There's something else. The trust requires a mid-term review before we renew the protective clauses. I need your signature to move forward. Once updated, your children won't be able to access a cent unless you explicitly authorize it. Good, I said, voice steady. Prepare everything. We walked back inside, and he laid the papers out on the rickety dining room table. Residents around us ate pudding cups and watched old game shows on the TV bolted to the wall. It was surreal, signing $7 million documents while a woman yelled at the screen because someone couldn't solve a crossword puzzle. But that's life. It doesn't wait for a perfect setting. I signed each page slowly, my hand steady despite the weight of what I was doing. When the last signature dried, my lawyer placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Harry, this is your life, not theirs. Don't forget that. When he left, I sat there alone. The staff drifted by, the residents shuffled along, and stillness settled back around me. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the man they left behind anymore. That evening, the phone at the front desk rang. I heard my name, then a pause, then the receptionist calling out, "Mr. Harry, your daughter is on the line." My first call in months. I walked slowly to the phone, not because my legs hurt, but because I already knew why she was calling. I picked it up, pressed it to my ear. "Dad?" she said, voice sweet in that artificial way people use when they want something. "We've been thinking, maybe we can come visit you this weekend." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Why the sudden change of heart? She hesitated. "Well, we miss you." And there it was, the lie. The same lie they used when they took my house, my things, my freedom. "Sure," I said softly. "Come visit." Because now, finally, the stage was mine, not theirs. The weekend came faster than I expected, and with it came a strange quiet that settled over the retirement home like a thick fog. Everyone knew I had visitors coming. It was rare enough to draw attention. Some residents got visitors every Sunday, some every few months. Me? I hadn't seen my kids in so long the nurses weren't sure what they even looked like. I woke up early that morning, not out of excitement, but out of habit. Old men like me don't sleep in. We rise with the sun, even when there's nothing waiting for us. I washed up, shaved carefully, and put on the one decent shirt I had left. My daughter had packed my clothes carelessly when they brought me here. Half my things were missing, but I made do. I always have. Around 10, a nurse poked her head into my room and smiled a little too brightly. "Your family just pulled up, Mr. Harry." Of course they were early. Guilt makes people punctual. I stepped into the hallway and saw them through the glass doors. My son Mark and my daughter Lisa. Both dressed sharp, like they wanted the staff to see what successful children looked like. Mark wore a navy suit, the kind he saved for job interviews and funerals. Lisa wore a tight white blouse and carried a designer bag I knew she couldn't afford without dipping into my accounts. Behind them stood my daughter-in-law, the one who always treated me like an obligation. She gave the building one sweeping, judgmental look that told me she believed she was too good for this place. Funny, considering she had pushed the hardest to put me in here. They walked in with smiles so wide you'd think they'd won something. "Dad!" Lisa called out, rushing to me with her arms open. She hugged me like she was auditioning for the role of loving daughter. But her body was tense, too stiff, too practiced. Mark shook my hand, squeezing it a little too tight. A dominance move. He never outgrew those. "You look good, Dad," he said. "Healthy." "Life here must be treating you well," Lisa added, eyeing the peeling wallpaper like it offended her. I nodded. "It's quiet." We sat in the common area, me in my usual faded armchair, them perched on the edge of their seats like they couldn't bear to touch anything for too long. My daughter-in-law crossed her legs, glanced around, then whispered to Mark, "It smells like old potatoes in here." I heard her. I just pretended I didn't. "So, Dad," Mark started, clearing his throat, "we wanted to check in, see how you're doing." "Really? I asked, keeping my voice gentle. After all these months? Mark stiffened. We've been busy. You know how it is. Kids, work, responsibilities. I nodded slowly. Responsibilities. Lisa leaned forward. Actually, Dad, there's something important we wanted to talk about. Her tone softened, turning syrupy sweet. About your situation. Here it comes. What situation? I asked. Well, she said carefully. The house. Your accounts. Your future care. She exchanged a glance with her brother. We've been thinking it might be best if we handle things moving forward. Mark chimed in. Financially speaking, it's not safe for you to manage everything alone anymore. There it was, the real reason. Not love, not concern, money. I let silence stretch for a moment. I watched their eyes. Mark's sharp with anticipation. Lisa's wide with faux concern. The daughter-in-law's cold and calculating. I had seen that look before years ago when I was a young man trying to hold together a family that always wanted more than they earned. Actually, I said softly, I met with someone recently. They froze. Who? Mark asked too quickly. My lawyer. The color drained from Mark's face. Lisa opened her mouth, but no sound came out. My daughter-in-law suddenly stopped breathing altogether. Why? Mark asked. Why would you see him? To review my affairs, I said calmly, as any responsible man would. Lisa forced a smile. Dad, you know you can talk to us about those things. You don't need outsiders involved. Is that so? I asked. Funny. You didn't seem too interested in talking when you dropped me off here. Her jaw clenched. She didn't like being reminded of that day. Mark leaned forward. Dad, listen. We're just trying to help. Your finances are complicated. You're older now. You might not fully understand. I laughed, quiet but sharp enough to cut the air. Mark, sweetheart, I understand more than you think. He swallowed hard. That was the moment he realized something had shifted. Something big. Lisa fidgeted with her bracelet. Dad, what exactly did you and the lawyer discuss? The trust, I said simply. Mark went pale. What trust? The one with $87 million in it, I said, lowering my voice but never breaking eye contact. The one you never knew about. For a moment, the whole room went silent. Even the TV on the wall seemed to hold its breath. Lisa gasped, covering her mouth. Mark's jaw fell open. My daughter-in-law whispered, 87 million? Mark recovered first. Dad, you're exaggerating. There's no way. There is, I said. Every cent documented, every asset protected, every clause airtight. Lisa looked like she'd been hit in the stomach. Why didn't you tell us? I sighed. Because you didn't earn the right to know. Their faces twisted. Hurt, fear, disbelief, greed all tangled into something ugly. Dad, Mark said, lowering his voice, you need to think this through. We're your children. Yes, I said. And children don't throw their father away when he's still alive. They went silent again. And now, I continued, you want control over something you didn't build, didn't support, and didn't respect. Lisa's eyes filled with tears, not real tears, but the kind used in negotiations. We made a mistake. We were overwhelmed. We thought, I know what you thought, I interrupted. You thought I was finished, that you could tuck me away, sweep up whatever scraps I left behind, and live comfortably off my work. I leaned forward. But I'm not done, and you don't get to write my ending. My daughter-in-law muttered, this can't be happening. Mark stood up. Dad, let's go somewhere private and talk. No, I said, we're done talking. I stood slowly, letting the moment breathe. I'll see you when I decide, not when you demand. And the trust? I smiled. It's locked tighter than ever. I walked away before they could speak again. For the first time since they abandoned me, I felt alive. I didn't sleep much the night after they visited. Not because I was upset. No, that part of me had died the moment they left me in this place. What kept me awake was the quiet realization that I finally held every card. For years, I'd moved like an old dog limping around the yard, pretending I'd lost my teeth. But now the truth sat clean and sharp in my hands, and I wasn't about to play the fool again. The following morning, the retirement home felt different. Not physically. No, the walls were still chipped. The hall still smelled faintly of boiled cabbage, and the lights still flickered like they hadn't been changed since the 90s. But something inside me had shifted. I walked through the corridor like a man who had a destination for the first time in months. At breakfast, a few residents noticed it. Old Marvin, the guy with the endless crossword puzzles, looked up and squinted. "You win the lottery or something?" he muttered. "Something like that," I said. I didn't owe anyone explanations, not anymore. By mid-morning, I called my lawyer from the front office phone. The receptionist handed me the receiver with a little smile. Everyone here loved seeing me get calls, probably because it was such a rarity. "Harry," my lawyer answered immediately. "I figured you'd call today. We need to move," I told him. "I want to finalize the restructuring, and there's something else." "Of course, what is it?" "I want out of here, today if possible." There was a pause, just long enough to tell me he wasn't surprised. "I'll handle everything. Expect a car by noon." I hung up slowly, savoring the moment. For months I'd been treated like a burden, a cost, a problem to relocate. Now I was taking back my life, inch by inch. Around 11, Lisa called again. I let it ring twice before picking up. I could hear her breathing hard, like she'd been pacing. "Dad," she said quickly, "about yesterday? We didn't mean to overwhelm you. We were just concerned." I replied. "Is that so?" "Yes, Mark's been going through a lot and maybe we handled things wrong," she said, her voice cracking in that rehearsed way I recognized from every time she wanted something growing up. "Can we just talk, please?" I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the desperation beneath her words. It wasn't my well-being she cared about. It was $87 million giving her a panic attack. "We'll talk," I said gently, "but not today." "Why not?" she rushed. "Because I'm leaving this place." Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Leaving? Where? With who?" "With myself," I said, "for the first time in a long time." She tried to argue, but I hung up mid-sentence. It was time for a clean break. At noon sharp, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the entrance. The residents all turned their heads. Anything shiny that wasn't a wheelchair was worth staring at around here. My lawyer stepped out of the passenger side, looking crisp and calm as always. "Harry," he said with a warm smile, "ready to go?" I nodded. A nurse hurried over, confused. "Mr. Harry, you're being discharged, but we didn't." "It's handled," my lawyer interrupted. "All paperwork is signed and payment is complete." Payment. Months of fees paid in a single stroke. The director practically tripped over himself thanking us when he heard. It's funny, people pretend to care about you, but they really care about where the money flows. I didn't bother packing much. A few shirts, some old photographs, my worn leather journal. Everything else was replaceable. As I stepped outside, I took one last look at the building. Not with anger, not even with bitterness. Just finality. I had survived it, and I wasn't coming back. We drove through the city toward a quiet coastal neighborhood, one I used to visit before my wife passed. He led me to a small yet elegant two-bedroom home overlooking the water. Not a mansion, not a castle, just a place that felt like freedom. "All yours," my lawyer said, handing me a set of keys. "The trust will cover everything, and I made sure none of your children can claim any involvement in your relocation." I walked inside slowly. The air smelled fresh, like pine and salt, mixed with something warm. The furniture was simple but comfortable, the kind of place that didn't demand anything from you. For the first time in a long time, my shoulders dropped. I didn't even realize how much weight I'd been carrying. "You deserve this," he added. "No," I said quietly, "I earned this." He nodded. He knew better than anyone. For the next few days, I settled into my new rhythm. Morning coffee on the porch, long walks by the water. I wrote in my journal, something I'd stopped doing years ago. I cooked simple meals and took my time eating them. Life felt honest again, stripped of noise and expectations. But peace never lasts long when you have kids like mine. 3 days after the move, Mark showed up without warning. I saw him through the window, pulling up in his car like he was storming into a boardroom. He knocked hard, 3 sharp hits like he wanted to break the door down. I opened it slowly. "Mark." He pushed past me, storming inside. "Dad, what the hell is going on? You leave the home without telling us? You ignore our calls? You move here? What is this?" I closed the door calmly. "It's my life. That's what this is." He spun around. "We're your children. You owe us communication." "Owe you?" I repeated. "I owe you nothing you haven't earned, and you earned exactly what you gave me, distance. He clenched his jaw. This is about the trust, isn't it? Yes, I said, because you made it about the trust. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Dad, we can work together. We can manage the money wisely. Make sure it stays in the family. It will, I cut in, just not yours. He froze, staring at me like I'd struck him. I've reassigned everything, I continued. Every clause, every beneficiary path, every asset. I made sure the trust goes to people who value respect over inheritance. Mark swallowed. You can't do this. I already have. The wind shifted outside, carrying the sound of waves against the rocks. I could see his face crumple. Anger, fear, disbelief, all battling inside him. This isn't fair, he said. We're your family. Family, I replied softly, isn't determined by blood. It's determined by behavior. He turned toward the door, fury radiating off him. You'll regret this, he snapped. No, I said as he opened the door. You will. He left without another word. As the door shut behind him, I felt a steady calm settle into my chest. For the first time in decades, I wasn't living in fear of disappointing anyone. I was living for myself, and the reckoning wasn't over yet. I didn't expect Lisa to be the next one to show up, but life has a way of sending the gentler storms after the harsh ones. She arrived 2 days after Mark's meltdown, pulling up slowly, cautiously, like the driveway itself might judge her. I watched from the window as she sat in her car for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, psyching herself up. She'd always been the more emotional one, volatile, but softer underneath. Still, softness doesn't erase cruelty. It just hides it behind prettier words. When she finally got out, she walked up to the porch with small, tentative steps. She looked good. Too good. Makeup done, hair styled, clothes spotless. People tend to dress their best when they hope to rewrite the stories they've told with their actions. She knocked lightly, as if afraid to disturb the peace she never bothered to give me before. I opened the door. Lisa. Her eyes glistened immediately. Dad, can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, scanning the house like she was mapping every detail. Maybe she was trying to understand how I'd gone from a broken-down retirement home to a place like this in such a short time. Dad, she said as she took a seat, I heard what happened with Mark. He said you were angry. I wasn't angry, I replied, sitting across from her. I was honest. She swallowed hard. He said you changed the trust, that we're, her voice cracked, that we're not included anymore. I didn't answer. Silence is sometimes kinder than truth. Dad, she said, leaning forward, I know we made mistakes, big ones, but we thought you couldn't live alone. We thought, no, I said gently. You thought I was easier to manage when I was out of sight. She flinched like the words struck her physically. Dad, please, she whispered, let me explain. So I let her. I crossed my arms and watched as she unraveled. She talked about stress, about her marriage, about bills, about the pressure of taking care of a father she assumed was broke and needy. She talked about Mark influencing her, about her mother-in-law whispering things in her ear, about fear that I would become a responsibility she couldn't afford. And when you moved into that home, she said, her voice small, I thought maybe you'd be okay there. I nodded. And did you check, even once? She broke then, quiet tears, the kind that don't make noise but carry years of guilt. But guilt is only worth something if it leads to change. I'd seen guilt too many times used as a bargaining chip. Dad, she said through a shaky breath, is it true? Is there really $87 million? The question hung in the air like a heavy curtain. There it was, the real reason for her visit. The tears, the explanations, the guilt. They were real, but they weren't alone in the car. Greed had buckled its seatbelt right beside her. Yes, I said calmly, there is. She inhaled sharply, wiping her face. Dad, I'm your daughter. I know, I replied, and I love you, but love doesn't erase choices. What are you saying? She whispered. I'm saying the trust isn't changing. Her lips trembled. Dad, please, I'm not like Mark. I'm trying. You had months to try, I said softly. You didn't call. You didn't visit. You didn't care where I slept or what I ate or whether I was lonely. She covered her eyes with her hands. I thought you were safe there. You thought I was silent there, I corrected. Out of the way. Her shoulders shook. And for a moment, I did feel a tug of sympathy. Years of raising a child don't disappear. But wisdom teaches you something harsh. You can love someone and still refuse to hand them the tools to destroy you. Dad, she whispered, I don't want the money. I just don't want to lose you. I studied her carefully. Her posture, her tone, her eyes. There was truth there. But it was tangled, mixed with fear, panic, and the realization that her actions had consequences she never imagined. You haven't lost me, I said gently, but you no longer get to decide my life. That era is over. She reached out a hand, hesitant. Can I at least come back? Visit? Talk? Like we used to? I let out a long, slow breath. Visits are welcome, as my daughter, not as a beneficiary. She nodded slowly, absorbing the line I'd drawn. It wasn't punishment, it was boundary, the kind I should have built years ago. She stayed for an hour, longer than I expected. We talked about memories, about her kids, about the things we lost and the things we might still salvage. When she finally stood to leave, she hugged me tight, tighter than she had when they first dropped me at that home. It wasn't a performance this time. It had weight. It had fear. It had love trying to fix itself. After she left, the house felt quiet again, but not empty. Just peaceful. A different kind of visit came a week later. It was a young woman named Anna, my nurse from the retirement home. She arrived with a sealed letter and a shy smile. From some of the residents, she said. They heard you left. They wanted to say goodbye proper. I opened the letter after she left. Inside were messages, simple, heartfelt scribbles from people who had nothing but still gave more kindness than my own children. Visit us when you can. Your stories kept me company. You always shared your dessert. We miss you, friend. I sat with that letter for a long, long time. Some people have millions and give nothing. Others have nothing and give the world. That night I wrote a note in my journal, one I'd been forming quietly since the day I left that retirement home. I would restructure the trust one final time, not for my children, not for punishment, not for revenge, but to build something living, something breathing, something useful. Homes with dignity, care without abandonment, staff who were trained, paid well, and treated like the lifeline they are. Residents given joy, not storage. A place where no one would rot away unseen the way so many had, and the way I almost did. My trust would become a foundation, a living memory, a shield for strangers who needed the kindness my children had forgotten how to give. And maybe one day my family would understand the lesson. Before I closed my journal for the night, I looked out at the calm sea and spoke softly to the air. When they left me there, they thought they took everything. I smiled. But they only freed me. If this story sparked something in you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or showed you that you're not alone in the battles life throws your way, stick around. I've got more tales from these old bones, more truth, more grit, and more fire to light your way, and trust me, the next story might just be the one you needed to hear.